And I owe that great opportunity to be in the film Waking Life to Tommy Pilata, the producer of the film, and Richard Linkletter, two guys that I've gotten so busy over the years I never even get to reach out to and contact. By the way, remind me to try to call Tommy Pilata on those numbers we have again today, because the number I have for him is an old number. And Tommy called me the last time I talked to him about 3-4 months ago. I was in a UFC fight because Joe Rogan had invited me down to Houston. And, well, I was already in Houston protesting the Fed, and Joe had heard that, so he invited me over to the UFC. And Tommy called me while I was in the middle of watching the fights, and he could barely hear me, so I haven't talked to him then. I'm not name dropping. I'm like now communicating with my old friends via the radio show because I know he listens sometimes, and his friends do. So, Tommy, I think about you all the time, and I bet he even came to Southwest, and I always miss his phone calls or don't call him back the few times he's called. So now I'll just communicate to you here. You're awesome. What a smart guy, too. He's an amazing guy. So is Rick Linkletter. That's now what this radio show has turned into, is a public communication. You know, I want to try to break the cycle here on this radio show. It's a great radio show, very informative, but I just don't want to get up here and just bray at people, calling the New World Order criminals and calling all the different systems criminal, which is true to a great extent, but we know that. I want to try to have a calm, focused, reflective show. I tried this yesterday, and it didn't happen, because I got off into brain-altering vaccines that literally attack your tissue. And I dream of actually just calmly covering all the news. I dream of actually taking hundreds of your phone calls, and I've only attained that dream a few times because I'm always going in the same paradigm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the phones up for first-time callers, and at least in the first and second hour, then everybody in the third hour, on any subject, any question or comment. No matter how good the caller is, I'm giving them 1 minute, and then I'm giving myself 30 seconds to respond. We're going to be taking your phone calls. When we come back, I'll give you the number. This is Alex Jones with 5 good reasons you should live, L-I-V-E, and transmitting out globally on over 100 AM and FM affiliates. Global shortwave, 100,000 watts worldwide, WWCR. #1 on the audio streams and podcasts for talk radio via many metrics like Shoutcast and others at Infowars.com. Streaming video at Prisonplanet.tv. And, of course, channel XM 166. Thank you so much for tuning in to this hour of Infowars. I want to do something a little bit different today, and you see me struggle with this every day because there is no program director, there is no radio consultant, there is no manager over Alex Jones. And quite frankly, some days I wish there was, just because they're there to challenge you and to bounce things off of you and to point out what could be better. Because some days I hear my radio show rebroadcast, and it is the essence of powerful information and oratory skills and the incredible guest and the breaking news. There's a reason this broadcast now reaches, one way or another, over 15 million. In fact, I've got to bump that number up. Conservatively, it's more than that. 15 million people a week. But then I realized, wow, that's an incredible responsibility. And I tend to get frustrated with the information. I tend to get angry after I read this stuff all day and all night and then finally get on air. I get angry and frustrated because there's piles of it. And I figured out, psychoanalyzing myself, that at a subconscious level, I get so frustrated and angry by the news that then I start to basically spin out of control and just get angry and nasty. And you can't argue with success. It's just that I personally want to move more towards being calm and focused and really deliberative in what I do, instead of sometimes not being as effective because I'm in a rage. I knew this was coming for a long time. They're launching all sorts of nuclear-powered satellites now that have reactors, little systems on board that if they do ever come back into orbit or out of orbit into the atmosphere will make Chernobyl look like a health food. Now they're announcing drones to circle 24/7 that are nuclear powered. And you know they're going to crash. You know they're going to have malfunctions. It doesn't matter. The system says DU's good, Chernobyl's good, Fukushima's good. They actually say, I know I talk about this ad nauseum because it's total proof of the elite being out of their minds crazy. Radiation levels are going up everywhere. Alaska, Hawaii, San Diego, from Fukushima. It's still belching plutonium and uranium out into the atmosphere, into the water, all coming towards North America. And the EPA and FDA just raised the levels last year, as you know, of more than 20 different isotopes. In one case, they raised an isotope, the level they say is safe, 100,000 times what they previously said was safe. And I know I've talked about that hundreds of times on air. And I've got all this new news. But it's just things like that prove how dangerous these people are. And now they've got all the, quote, environmental eugenicists like Monbiot and others in the London Guardian and our own newspapers running around saying nuclear power is the answer. And radiation is not bad for us. And Ann Coulter says it's good for us. And we need to build local nuclear power stations to power all our towns. All right. It's just seeing this reckless desire to hurt the planet and hurt humanity, and the people doing it are on a high horse calling themselves conservationists and environmentalists, lecturing everyone all day, saying pay money to these consortiums, these carbon trading companies that are publicly owned by the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Ted Turner, Warren Buffett, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, heavily invested, Barack Obama, to tax us on breathing, to tax us on our gasoline, our electric power. They're setting up a post-industrial world for the general population while building compact reservations of high-tech systems. And they're hurting our military, letting them use the depleted uranium. And they just don't care. And so I'm saying, what's coming next? They know DU's a death sentence, a long, painful death sentence for military that uses it, not just those that have it used on them. The system knows that 9 out of 10 reactors are leaking because they're old and rotting. They just don't care. Their answer is, let them eat cake. They put radioactive isotopes in the so-called fluoride compounds, mined out of sulfate mines, into the water. I mean, this is so beyond any science fiction movie I could ever imagine. And then I see some of the general public, and they really think I'm crazy. And I guess in a way I am. I've used this analogy many times because it's one that's so true. If you or I were teleported back 1,000 years ago to the heyday of the Aztec kingdom in central Mexico, to where Mexico City is today, and they were sacrificing people every hour on the hour, sometimes thousands a day. Sun comes up, kill a few people. Sun goes down, kill a few people. The priest class made their money off then hanging the human bodies in the square and selling them for meat. If you, to other humans, if you were to teleport yourself back and you'd studied as an anthropologist the Mayan dialect, and you could communicate to that Mayan culture, dominated by the Aztecs, part of the Mayan culture, and you said, this is wrong to chop people's hearts out and sell their flesh. It's wrong to torture yourselves. The priest class on a routine basis would take hallucinogens and take big, long pieces of yarn with pieces of glass in it and draw it through their genitals to have hallucinations of pain, worshiping skull and snake gods. I mean, this is beyond Hellraiser. This is real Hellraiser stuff, putting hooks in themselves, all of this. They would look at you and say, you are crazy. And all of them would laugh at you. See? So you would be insane. If you could teleport yourself back 70-something years to a Nazi extermination camp where they were running people into pits and shooting them, and you said, don't do that. You know, if you could speak German, don't do that. It's wrong to kill these people. It's wrong to be shooting women holding babies who you've stripped down naked in these pits. They would look at you and just arrest him and kill him. And so I'm going to admit it. I am crazy. I am. Compared to the average person. You know, I talked to him about this the other day because one of my employees, separate from something going on at my office, got picked up in a FBI dragnet because he did some webmaster work for some bar owners, and I've started to look at the case like it's all a setup here locally. And in the meeting, you know, it was basically all about how I'm crazy and this is all just my opinion. And so they wanted to make it about Alex Jones. And I can understand for people like that would spend 8 years or more of college so they could become an FBI agent. It doesn't matter if a federal court just ruled yesterday that the FBI is covering up government involvement in Oklahoma City. I have that in the newspapers out of Salt Lake. It doesn't matter if I have their own memos that have been released by courts and that we know that the feds were running those attacks. Those guys aren't going to ever believe that could be real because that upsets their whole world. And that's why corruption can grow to this level, is because everybody thinks they've got a stake in the system, so they defend it because it couldn't be real. Really, Fast and Furious couldn't be real? All confirmed. I told you a year and 3 months ago that it was about narcotics trafficking and shipping guns into Mexico and to gangs around the U.S. to control the drug trade, not about just some guns sold out of some shops to track them. That was the cover. That's all admitted. I told you it would be used to blame the Second Amendment because I already had speeches by the Attorney General talking about the program before the full details came out. He was just saying, oh, we got a program to track guns, showing that he knew the program was there. Of course he knew. He ordered it. It's come out. But I can see why people like that don't want to admit to it. I can see that they just want to say, oh, that guy's crazy. When I have police officers on this show who were at Oklahoma City on record, heroes, who saw the feds and the bombs and all the rest of it and had the FBI come to their offices and say, you and your wife are dead if you ever talk about what you saw. I can see how little junior FBI agents that are part of the compartmentalized system sit here and think I'm crazy. And they won't even go look up what I said. Then you have Treasury agents like Joe Bannister, who finds out the IRS is a collection agency for the private Federal Reserve. He started speaking out, so they arrested him. I had tried everything. I'd cut. We'll be completely open phones today and a ton of news. I've cleared the decks. No guests today. We do have some big